My dad lives in Scotland.
Well, we were there. This was a couple summers ago.
Inverness.
Inverness.
Inverness. The one that's rockets.
I always think of you as the elusive prey.
I know. But actually, you had me.
Yeah. Been there, done that. What postcode?
No, we went completely off topic, and we were talking about like halcyon, I don't know, something like rainbows or something.
Rainbows are good. So, were there a lot of rainbows in this movie? Was it a?
It was a lot.
Rainbows. Rainbows of acting.
Yeah, rainbows of fear, basically. No, do you know what? It's a really
I love it. It's so
good starting
abstract.
question.
Where do we start?
No, I suppose when in the process of prepping for it, we met Jane and Jonathan and the whole sort of Hawking family and Stephen, of course, and they are such a kind and kind of generous family, and Stephen lives with such optimism. There was a sense of optimism and fun that ran through it, but also deep fear.
I like that. That's segueing from rainbows into the theory of everything.
Well, you were the obvious choice. I mean, when you think Stephen Hawking, you think Eddie Redmayne. That's the.
I mean, that's the person that comes to mind.
Did they come to you, or did you pursue it?
Oh God, I wish I could say they came to me. I don't think anyone's
Please,
ever come to me in their life. No, I read the screenplay, Anthony's screenplay, and I'd actually been at university at Cambridge where Stephen was, and had seen in the icon of his silhouette and heard his voice, and knew nothing about science. Gave up science when I was a kid, and so when I read the script, I was kind of dumbfounded by how ignorant I'd been. There was this kind of amazing, sort of uplifting story behind him. So I chased pretty hard. And James Marsh, who did Man on Wire, which is one of my favourite films, and what I loved about that film was in theory it was about one thing, about this extraordinary sort of genius, but actually for me it ended up being a film about friendship and something much more human, and I thought that was kind of a wonderful match. So no, I chased pretty hard for it.
And were you chasing also from this other angle?
They just gave it to me. They said, it's so great. No, similar.
They thought of you as aging in a bob cut.
They're like, we know the woman who can do that.
Who can pull off an aging bob cut.
The aging bob cut. That's how that part will stay with me now for the rest of my life.
Exactly. She did a huge progression over 20 years.
Yeah. The aging bob cut.
Yeah.
Well, it was a significant hairstyle in the film.
Well, it's like you went through that whole thing and then you ended up with that hair, and I'm like, oh my God, that poor actress.
But she did have a lovely dress and a great hair.
Let's not talk about the hair. No, I had to audition. I thought they'd just offer it. I don't know what. And then they said you have to audition.
But we had this hilarious audition though, in which it was there's this scene when they kind of move away from each other, and he is at this point on the voice machine, and James was like, when we were auditioning with Felicity, maybe you should just read the scene normally, and I sort of, the problem is that's the tension of the scene is in the fact that he presses play each time he wants to speak. So I was like, is it going to be too off-putting for Felicity if I record it onto an iPhone and basically just press play? So we had this. It must have been the most surreal audition I've ever experienced.
Yeah. I guess it was good preparation though for what would be quite a technical experience. It was kind of been thrown in at the deep end. But no, I auditioned. I think there were 3 actresses they were looking at, and as per usual, there's always tons of really talented actresses and hardly any decent parts. So you always have to fight. That's part of the job. So I went in and auditioned with James and Eddie, and it worked. It just felt, even at that point, it felt like there was a good chemistry between all of us. And James actually, Should I just carry on? You were just going to speak.
No, it's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you without saying
Don't interrupt me.
It was also interesting because even though I'd been offered it through speaking to James a few times on the phone, when he said that if this was auditioning, he was like, by the way, this isn't an audition for you. I was like, bullshit, it's not an audition for me. He's like, don't worry, you're not being judged. I'm like, that's bollocks. This is going straight to the head of Universal, straight to the head of working title. So I was absolutely shitting myself the whole way through the audition.
You never have the job until you're actually on set.
Yeah.
And
Even then you don't have the job.
Even then,
yeah.
until you've done like 2 weeks, and then it's really difficult to fire you.
Yeah.
But until
Every frame,
that point, yeah.
Well, it's an interesting movie because it's so much not about the chair. I mean, the chair is there, and we get the voice box and the voice machine and all that, but the vast majority of the movie is before that.
Yeah.
So as an audience, it's a kind of an unexpected journey in that way. Did you have many points of reference for this couple before that, or was it talking to them, or just reading the story? Or?
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing real people, there's so much research you have to do, and we both sort of got really stuck into that side of it. Started very early on before started shooting, and met Jane and Stephen, who were very much involved in the making of the film, you know, and fully gave us their blessing, and we had quite sort of daunting experiences meeting both of them, and knowing that you're supposed to try and inhabit this human being, and
Is that what was daunting, or was there something about the experience that was?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, knowing that we've both done so much reading about them, and then I mean, it's different for both of us, but with Jane, it was, you know, I thought just such an incredible woman, reading her book and looking after Stephen, having 3 kids at the same time, and there being, you know, a lot of responsibility in that. And then Stephen's the most famous great mind in the world. I mean, it's pretty intimidating.
It sort of felt also that at each level of the story, whether it was learning about his icon and the science, so trying to get your head around the science side of it, I was lucky to meet some of his students, and they'd come and talk at this level, and I was like, imagine I'm 7, literally talk to me like a child, go back to what a black hole means. So there was the science that needed to be sort of authentic, and then through the process, Felicity and I also met like 30 or 40 people suffering from ALS, motor neuron disease, and their families and their carers, and so trying to depict that brutal disease authentically. But at the same point, all of that side of things, I suppose those are the more iconic sides, but that's not the story is this kind of unconventional love story about sort of love in all its guises, and we wanted to do all that homework.
Yeah, get it out of the way.
Alfred Molina always says this wonderful thing that like no audience wants to see your homework. Like you don't want to kind of do all this stuff and go, hi, look what I spent the past 7 months doing. And actually this story is about 2 pretty formidable human beings, and we did all that work so that when we came to playing we could just play.
Yeah, get on with the work.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Eddie and I have very similar ways of working, similar approaches. We'd both worked with Michael Grandage at this theatre in London, the Donmar Warehouse, and so there were so many times when we were using techniques that we'd learned there and bringing them onto set. And James actually gave us so much freedom to do things like that, to really take ownership over what we were doing.
Did you guys do something together at Donmar?
We didn't, but Michael Grandage.
We did a poetry. That's the most English thing ever.
Don't tell anyone that. Don't. Yeah, exactly. We're going to seem like caricatures.
Oh God. Yeah. Literally, we read poetry.
We did poetry.
She's very good at reading poetry.
Yeah, I mean, you're not bad yourself, love. Yeah. So that was our only time.
Yeah.
I mean, we weren't. It wasn't. It's not like we worked. We didn't reading together.
But Grandage's ideas of how to do things.
Well, he's just been a huge influence on both of us, and at a really early stage in our careers. So, yeah, and someone we've learnt from, so we wanted.
But it was
to
lovely because we also
the
sort of knew each other as friends, and also respected quasi friends. Come on, pretend this for camera.
It's so embarrassing.
And we had then sort of done, but actually, what it meant was when we were jumping into this, which did feel like jumping off a cliff, we could do it
together.
Yeah. And also, if we were going to fail, we were going to fail hard, but together. Yeah.
So when you talk about like learning the mathematics or having some sense of what the mathematics are, and, I mean, can you play that? Can you really play intelligence? Can you play?
It's really hard for him. It's like, I mean.
I spent months trying to work out how to make it look like she had a PhD. But what's interesting was this, was that actually it's a bit like, I don't know, the more confident you are intellectually, the less you sort of demonstrate it. That's what I found in life, and I was lucky enough to go to Cambridge and meet a lot of those people who are at that level, and they tend to never sort of shove it down your throat. It's those people that are more intellectually sort of insecure, I think, that really do try and shove it down. And so weirdly, that side of it never scared me hugely. I just thought, provided I can understand the science that is depicted in the film and learn those equations convincingly, then I'm not going to lie. On the flight over here to do press, I was going back to my notes from you, going, E equals MC squared. It's like sort of exactly like the Wikipedia version was far too complicated.
On it
I know.
at some point.
Dummy's Guide to Astrophysics.
What is one of the interesting things about the picture that you believe this couple is a couple, and you believe there's sexual tension, even though he's getting increasingly physically unable to do anything. You kind of buy that part works so well that it kind of dominates the whole thing.
Well, they both have that in real life. You know, Stephen is very flirtatious. He's very he loves the ladies, and Jane herself has a sort of, when you meet her, she has this immediate sexuality. And so it was being true to them, and
a lot of their photos from that period as well. Like they incredibly cool. Like their dress sense. They're kind of they talk about the fact that in that period in the 60s there was this sort of atomic cloud, and the fear that the bomb could go off in any. So they were living quite a free existence, and there is something inherently sort of sexy about that in some ways. So
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Well, when we saw that photograph, it gave us such a clue. So sort of a way into the story. We're seeing actually, and just seeing they were just totally, they were young in the same way that everyone is, and going out and
they weren't
drinking.
Period drama.
Yeah, exactly. And we wanted to keep that sort of easiness between them.
And how was the James Marsh experience?
Awesome.
Great.
I mean, people talk about collaboration and directors, but he is
truly collaborative.
Truly collaborative, and allows everyone their voice, and most importantly, allows us the opportunity and gives us the balls to screw up, basically, and to try again if to have sort of big ideas as well.
Yeah, he's just very good at reading people's characters, and I think he knows how to get the best out of people. And he probably thought with us, if I leave them alone, that's probably
exactly.
He creates a really safe working environment, as you said, so that you can try loads of things out, and in the edit, he's gonna edit you favourably.
But I remember you saying also early on that because of his documentary background, and also he had this idea of, rather than putting time captions on the film, because it does take place over a long period of time, to show that progression rather than having captions through kind of this home video Super 8 stuff. And that was wonderful for us because, and Felicity said, it's all about us putting stuff out and really showing all the aspects of this. And the more time we spent, I remember meeting Tim Hawking, the youngest son, and he was like, we used to jump onto Dad's wheelchair, use it as a go-kart, write rude words, put it into this voice machine, and all of that sort of stuff we could come back and
precious about the disease and about the chair,
and put that into some of the improvised moments that James allowed us. Yeah.
And did it get harder? Was it got harder physically? Was it really? I mean, it looked painful. In terms of what you must have been going through doing that for how many hours a day.
At the end of a take, Eddie would do this incredible exhale, because you realise sometimes the takes so long, because we shot on digital, and obviously it's a lot more inexpensive than film, so you can do long takes. And Eddie I didn't realise how painful it was for him to be holding some of these positions and poses, and then at the end you just it's like sigh of relief, and it was it's pretty amazing to watch.
Thanks. You haven't come back. No, it's interesting. It's just like weird as basically, rather than the disease making your muscles not just wither, but some of them actually become rigid and sort of spastic almost. So it wasn't about just letting everything go, it was about more tension, and almost the less you could use, the more focused all of that energy and expression had to be on the specific thing. And when you meet Stephen, when we met him, he kind of moves so little facially now, and yet he is one of the most expressive people and has one of the most expressive faces. Jane, in fact, talked about how expressive his eyebrows. And so, but what was interesting is you sort of have to control things like the blinking, and the breathing was the reason for the exhale, was just you had to sort of control the breath thing. What?
And you're controlling your breath right now.
Yeah.
I'm actually holding my breath.
Post lunch.
And breathe out.
Yeah.
And breathe out. And now you're free to leave the festival, even. Are you?
Yeah.
And right
verging
now?
on-
Almost right now.
Go.
Going, right.
There are people at the door knocking as we speak.
Sorry.
Are we done? Oh no.
You actually are.
Are we actually going? Is that what all the squeaking was? Wait,
It's all
We've
the
only
squeaking
just
was.
started.
Well,
I
I'm guessing we'll
part
do this
two.
again before this is your awards journey is over.
That's the tension of the scene is in the fact that he presses play each time he wants to speak. So I was like, is it going to be too off-putting for Felicity if I record it onto an iPhone and basically just press play? So we had this. It must have been the most surreal audition I've ever experienced.
Yeah. I guess it was good preparation though for what would be quite a technical experience. It was kind of been thrown in at the deep end. But no, I auditioned. I think there were 3 actresses they were looking at, and as per usual, there's always tons of really talented actresses and hardly any decent parts. So you always have to fight. That's part of the job. So I went in and auditioned with James and Eddie, and it worked. It just felt, even at that point, it felt like there was a good chemistry between all of us. And James actually, yeah. Should I just carry on? You were just going to speak.
No, it's okay.
We know the woman who can do that.
Who can pull off an aging bob cut?
The aging bob cut. That's how that part will stay with me now for the rest of my life.
Exactly. She did a huge progression over 20 years.
Yeah. The aging bob cut.
Yeah.
Well, it was a significant hairstyle in the film.
Well, it's like you went through that whole thing and then you ended up with that hair, and I'm like, oh my god, that poor actress.
But she did have a lovely dress and a great hair.
Let's not talk about the hair. No, I had to audition. You know, I thought they'd just offer it. I don't know what. And then they said you have to audition.
But we had this hilarious audition though, in which it was there's this scene when they kind of move away from each other, and he is at this point on the voice machine, and James was like, you know, when we were auditioning with Felicity, maybe you should just read the scene normally, and I sort of the problem.
Where do we start?
No, I suppose when in the process of prepping for it, we met Jane and Jonathan and the whole sort of Hawking family and Stephen, of course, and they are such a kind and kind of generous family, and Stephen lives with such optimism. There was a sense of optimism and fun that ran through it, but also deep fear.
I like that. That's segueing from rainbows into the theory of everything.
Well, you were the obvious choice. I mean, when you think Stephen Hawking, you think Eddie Redmayne. That's the.
I mean, that's the first one that comes to mind.
Did they come to you, or did you pursue it? Or?
Oh God, I wish I could say they came to me.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's ever come to me in their life. No, I read the screenplay, Anthony's screenplay, and I'd actually been at university at Cambridge where Stephen was, and had seen in the icon of his silhouette and heard his voice, and knew nothing about science. Gave up science when I was a kid, and so when I read the script, I was kind of dumbfounded by how ignorant I'd been. There was this kind of amazing, sort of uplifting story behind him. So I chased pretty hard. And James Marsh, who did Man on Wire, which is one of my favourite films, and what I loved about that film was in theory it was about one thing, about this extraordinary sort of genius, but actually for me it ended up being a film about friendship and something much more human, and I thought that was kind of a wonderful match. So no, I chased pretty hard for it.
And were you chasing also from some other angle?
They just gave it to me. They said, you know, it's so great. No, similar.
They thought of you as aging in a bob cut.
My dad lives in Scotland.
Well, we were there. This was a couple summers ago.
Inverness.
Inverness.
Inverness. The one that rockets.
I always think of you as the elusive prey.
I know. But actually, you had me.
Yeah. Been there, done that. What postcode?
No, we went completely off topic, and we were talking about like halcyon, I don't know, something like rainbows or something.
Rainbows are good. So were there a lot of rainbows in this movie? Was it a...
It was a laugh a
Rainbows.
minute.
Rainbows of acting.
Yeah, rainbows of fear, basically. No, do you know what? It's a really
I love it. It's so
good starting question.
abstract.